What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show, the podcast. And this is, I kid nobody, the coolest guest we've ever had on the show, the podcast. We've had cool content creators. We've had friends of mine. We have Shlomo Lipetz on the podcast, everybody. Stand and clap. We have Shlomo Lipetz on the podcast. Shlomo, thank you so much for being here, man. I really appreciate it.
You got it.
Honestly, there's so much to talk about. It's hard to even figure out where to begin, but I think we should right up front talk about the fact you have a playable card in MLB The Show. Now, it's got some facts wrong. You were not born in New York. You were born in Israel. And it says you're 45, which I know you're not. You're 44, right? So
Correct.
I'll have to reach out to some SDS people and see if we could pull some strings and get that corrected. But what is it like to be in the game? Do you play MLB The Show? Like, what does it feel like for you?
Well, first of all, it's awesome. I mean, I love seeing me, and they actually did a pretty good job. I mean, I'm glad I'm in the game now, and not 20 years ago when it's kind of just more of a Lego piece as opposed to someone that looked like me. You know, I wish, like you said, some of the facts were correct. I wish there was a little more true to my release point angle, but I mean, it's amazing. It's cool. I understand why I signed that MLB, I guess, exemption, or basically handing them the rights. One would think that I would see some money or see some type of, hey, do you mind us putting your name in the big leagues in the MLB The Show? But none of that happened. But again, needless to say, at this point in the career, this is not for the money, but just more for the street cred, I guess. So it's been great. I don't play the game, unfortunately. My video game hours or days are long gone, but I know a lot of people who play, and it's amazing. I mean, everyone my friends who do play, especially some of the teammates, are like, dude, I have it on my team. And I kind of dig, that they kept it the real. I wish I threw 89 as I used to, 25 years ago, and but I see value in throwing not high velocity, and I'm glad that it's reflected in the game.
So you hit on a couple things I wanted to ask about. So the first thing was what the process was like getting you into the game, but it sounds like there really was no process. You just signed some paperwork, and
it's basically me being tagged on a TikTok video saying, "Yo, did you check this out? You have a card." Now, I initially thought, because in 2017, the World Classic, Topps put out a bunch of baseball cards, like a special edition for the World Classic. So when someone sent me that first screenshot, I'm like, oh, cool. They just put out the next, round of baseball cards. Little did I understand that, it's a special edition. Now, maybe you could give me some insight here. Is it permanent? Is it one of those things for 3 weeks? It's and then it's done, kind of as a fad, or
so. The way MLB The Show is creating content this year is different than ever before, and they've never had World Baseball Classic cards in the game until this year. So we were all super excited about that. To my understanding, the cards are playable until December 31st of this year, so till the end of this year. So we could use you for the entire year.
9 months or 8 months is bath of my success in MLB, and hopefully become a local folk hero in the gaming scene.
Exactly. And you mentioned the velocity. I kind of wanted to walk you through your card a little bit and see
Please.
where you agree, where you disagree. So the velocity rating goes on a scale of 0 to 99. They have you as a 0. So that means you throw about 80, 81. How do we feel about that? Is that actually generous? It sounded like it might have been.
I would say last time I got clocked when I had an appearance against the Marlins pre-World Classic. I probably hit 78 on a fastball, but I would say, I live in New York. I barely had a preseason to kind of speak of. I would say 81, 82 for my fastball these days, I would say would be accurate.
And now velocity for a pitcher like yourself, I wouldn't say it's meaningless, but you are a control pitcher. You're going to pitch to contact. they have your control as a 59 out of 99. Now, that doesn't seem good enough to me.
They must have probably looked at a very small sample size. I mean, accuracy, starting bats is what I do. I throw strikes.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, I throw a four seam slider, changeup. I do play around with both the changeup, fastball, and slider, so I kind of try to increase the arsenal to about 8 or 9 different pitches.
Oh, wow.
I walk very little. I strike out very little, but I get a lot of contact and I get get it moving. So I would say in the accuracy, not too happy about it. I'm gonna have to go to the higher ups over there and change it together with my place of birth. But
We'll
again,
see what we could do.
yeah, thank you.
You mentioned four seam changeup slider, and then obviously you can work in a ton of different pitches. They have those three plus a sinker. Do you use a sinker a ton?
When you throw a 65 to 79, isn't by definition everything is a sinker.
It's a gravity sinker, is what I like to call it. Yeah. Yeah. And then the other thing I wanted to point out about the card, because I read that story in Fox Sports that was incredible. I forgot who said the quote, but basically, whenever they need a complete game, just go out and throw. Shlomo will take care of it. They have your stamina as a 24 out of 99. That doesn't seem high enough either.
In a day and age where pitchers get yanked out of game because, God forbid, he hasn't hit 14 pitches this season, and it's midseason. I think that's probably the most injustice they've done for me, and someone's gonna have to pay for this.
Oh, someone will pay. I will make it happen. The way you pitch, as far as your delivery goes, you come down to the side. Where did you develop that? Was that out of necessity because it wasn't working overhand, or were you just always picking it up and throwing it sidearm?
Well, since baseball in Israel basically didn't exist in Israel when I was there, right? I mean,
Okay.
Just for background, I'm first generation baseball player. I'm one of the first. I put together the first baseball team in Israel with a bunch of second graders in my class. So, I consider, let's say, starting my college career, which again I started late because I did 3 years in the Army. So I'd say 22. I used to drop down with 2 strikes in my freshman year, and then basically when I transferred to UCSD, our coach said, like, listen, right now you're probably in the same spot with 7, 8 other pitchers. When you drop down, it's nasty. If you want to get some PT playing time, you should probably stick down to there. And it took some time. I think your body wants to adjust, and when a pitch was meaningful, I would kind of come up. But I saw my most success when I stayed down there. So ultimately, we all know. I mean, for those who played college ball, it's a giant time sucker. And if you're planning to go to school and playing baseball or any sport, I could never imagine what it is to go through college and be on the bench. So I wanted to do anything I could do to get some playing time. So I just dropped down permanently.
Because baseball kind of came into your life in a place that didn't have any like structure to it as far as baseball goes, once you got to college and started pursuing it seriously, was the goal ever to accomplish the things that you accomplished, or is this kind of just all happened?
I'm going to say something. I'm going to go on a limb here and say that I'm probably the only person I know who had from the age of 10 as their main baseball goal career to play college ball. I don't know how at age 11 or 10 or 11, when I started playing baseball, I'm like, that is my goal. Now, I wasn't part of this whole hype, for good or for bad, with baseball. Like when I was like 10 to 22, there was one TV station in Israel. There was no internet. There's no store you could walk in Israel and streets of Tel Aviv and buy a baseball card. There's no way to buy a glove or a ball. So I wasn't as fixated with the culture of baseball as a lot of Americans. I didn't have the swag that people do. I mean, now you have no. It's Monday. It's pink wristband Monday. It's cool day Wednesdays. Whatever it is, I didn't have that, and I think now. The downside is I didn't have really necessarily a role model that I could really just imitate, which I really think is important for a developing baseball player. Like, it's all about, I talk about it all the time. You talk about coaching, you talk about what's the best thing for a kid, growing up playing baseball, being around great baseball players. And I think that's why, children of always kind of have an advantage, not only because the DNA, because when you're a kid, you learn imitating someone else. And I never had that. So point is, I never got fixated. I don't know if it's a matter of just me not having the motivation, or just not even having in my world. I never wanted to be a big leaguer, or that was never even an option. Once I got to college and I started, I was like, well, okay, my freshman year sucked. I think I pitched 7 innings and the team was horrible, which is the only reason I was able to walk on the team. Like anything else, with the success came the appetite. And I have to say, after my junior year, when I went like 5-0 and, really great ratio of strikeout balls, and my velocity was from down here, I was hitting 89, which remember those days where 89 was like, okay, now it's like 109.
Yeah.
And then I started getting some interest, and I definitely always played the Jewish card. I mean, we all have to kind of pride ourselves what we are. And, I did fill in the paperwork with both the Giants and the Dodgers, just to kind of, like hundreds and thousands of kids every year. I think where I stood apart was, unlike a lot of kids I played with who were much younger, that probably had an unrealistic expectation, especially in Southern California, about them getting drafted and kind of literally waited by the phone. I was a little more realistic. I was a little older.
Mm-hmm.
I knew where my limitation was, but hey, if someone, plus I had a lot of friends that played minor league. I mean, anyone who knows anyone who played in the minor leagues, it's a rough life. I mean, it's, unless you have Michael Jordan on your team, you're probably eating some really freaky biscuits and, some small snacks, and riding shitty buses and playing towns that mean nothing. So I always had some other interests. I want to play as much as I can. Evan, I'm still playing at 44, but I didn't have that fixation where, like a lot of people do, which is, this is my dream. This is the only thing I wanted to do since the age of 6 or 7. I don't care if I need to travel by bus. This is what I want to do. I kind of moved on. So I got flattered. I got kind of was like, that could be cool if I get first is really born to get picked in the, in the draft, but that obviously never happened. And long story short, yes, I definitely would have liked to get drafted.
When you did finally have the opportunity to immerse yourself in, I guess, baseball media, like you were saying, you didn't really have access to that. Who becomes that player or team or group of players that you do idolize, that you do look toward as like, I want to be like him?
Well, in the mid 90s, I mean, the Braves were definitely the team. If you're anything about pitcher and, just pinpoint location, especially folks who are not, 6'8" Randy Johnson,
Just freak humans.
that blows up, birds up out of into the ether. I would say kind of the Smoltz, Glavine era. My first exposure to baseball was in '86, and I kind of got into the Mets, so the David Cohns and the White Goods of the world. But still, I never had that proximity or that access to seeing videos on different grips, right? Or seeing in-depth conversations, or kids now could learn all the secrets all the time, just from all everything that's out there. So again, I think when people, I guess, especially Israelis, when they say, man, I don't understand the game of baseball, you hit it or catch it, I don't know. Or when people tell me, even Americans, that they're not really into the game, I could actually relate. I mean, I watch baseball on TV these days. I'm mainly into teams that have players that are in the organization that I've played with, or that I've worked with. So Sam Fold for Phillies, he played with us in 2017, got to be really friendly with us, so I kind of have affinity to that. And now that I played with Stubbs, and he's a super cool guy, and kind of have that. We got Jeremy Bleish, who's now in the Pirates organization as a coach, so I kind of following the Pirates. Alon Leishman, obviously my good friend and someone who I've played with for many years, is the first Israeli born to be in a coaching staff for the Reds. Kapler, and who played with us in 2013, and is in the Giants. So I have that kind of connection. I can understand people who tell me that the game is a little boring, but because so I'm not necessarily that kind of mega fan. What I tell them is what I tell anyone else: watch a game with someone who really has played the game and knows the ins and outs, because baseball, it's all about those nuances and what goes on behind every single decision. And playing, I mean, playing is amazing. I mean, I love just all pitch. I love getting mind fucking batters. I love, seeing a batter thinking they're about to hit a 400, foot home run. And then I love, even in college, I remember taking pride in hearing someone telling the guys in the dugout, as they walk out back to the dugout after, another ground ball or pop up, like, man, he has nothing. I got him. It's like, no, man. I got you just enough for you to pop up or to do a ground ball. And that's a great thing about baseball. I mean, it's the small little things. I mean, small stuff that, like, fuck around, these days it's all about, are you giving, it's like a poker game. Are you giving anything off by doing anything with your glove if you're a pitcher? I love just to fuck around. Like, I'll just move my finger like this, my glove finger from the outside, sometimes throwing a fastball, sometimes not.
You're not doing anything different. You're not changing grips or anything.
No, nothing. But, they think, oh, I'm seeing him moving the finger. It must be the fastball, whatever it is. So it's all about those little nuances and fucking around with people. And, people see taking off the batting gloves. It's all routines. It's all trying to kind of mess with people. It's interesting because that window of opportunity to mess with a pitcher and hitter has gone substantially small, shorter and smaller with the new rules. But then that's a whole different, new layer. I work really quick anyway on the mound, so I think it's crucial. I do not understand pitchers that take their time. If ultimately you want your defense to be behind you and be ready, taking 35 seconds between pitches is the worst recipe to getting your defense kind of up and ready on their heels.
It seems like also pitchers who take a long time, you give yourself too much time. Like, you can psych yourself out, live in your own head. Instead, just move on to the next pitch. Keep executing, keep everybody on their toes, like you said.
But that's, you bring up that point. I mean, people are stuck in routines and people are stuck in certain ways of thinking. Like, when I was a starter, I had the same routine as I was in a reliever. I don't get pitchers that get domed and it's like, oh, I have to warm up from the reliever. Are you throwing the ball? Throwing the ball. What is all this bullshit? Listening to music, doing all that stuff. Fucking throw the ball.
Yeah, just get it and throw it.
Get it out. Come on.
So I think why so many people since the World Baseball Classic, but now with you in the game as well, they've come to really appreciate your story and who you are, because, and obviously I mean this in the most respectful way possible, you're like baseball's everyman. You're just another dude. Obviously you have a background that is very different than a lot of us people do, but like, you have a full-time job. You, I'm sure, enjoy your work. You love baseball. And like every couple months, you just pick it up and go play in a national tournament. Like, that's the dream, or international tournament. And that's the dream I think every regular person would love to fulfill. So what has it been like for you, with so different and kind of little of a baseball upbringing, to go represent Israel in the World Baseball Classic, in the Olympics, which is incredible? Like, what has that been like for you?
It's mind-blowing. It's amazing. It's everything that you think it would be. It's, for someone who never had the taste of being a big leaguer, to be able to put on this mask and play pretend, but in real life,
yeah,
that you're a big leaguer. I mean, the cool thing about the World Baseball Classic is it's obviously endorsed by MLB. Everything has to be MLB standards. The buses, the hotels, the dugouts, everything has to be that. And it's amazing how quickly you make the switch in your head from I'm a hardworking American Israeli to I just play baseball. And
yeah,
I choose, I've always been kind of stuck in the moment and not, I think, and this is not dissing anyone else. I think it's just how you're wired. I was never in the moment, just over appreciating and starting to get nostalgic about what's going on while it's going on. For me, it's just like, today I'm here in the office like I am right now. Tomorrow I'm getting on the plane. Switch. I'm just a big leaguer. I'm just playing international ball. I'm
That's
facing
crazy. That's crazy to think about. Like,
some
I
of the
don't know
best
if
players in the
yeah.
world, and I enjoy it because you most cherish the moment. It's not about necessarily trying to cherish the moment and trying to capture every moment and over appreciate it, just living it and living it as if you fucking belong. And I think part of the reason why I've been able to gel with all the players and the big league coaches and everyone else, it's just I'm not a fanboy. I'm as if I belong, right? And that's something that I think, I've met and dealt with lots of high profile musicians, obviously, as my job as running a music venue. And I've met, because of it, high profile celebrities and actors and obviously baseball personalities. It's all about your demeanor and all about how you come to the table with it. And as long as you're not like, I never take a selfie with anyone. I never kind of dork out, maybe, beyond it. I just, as if I belong. And I think that has not only allowed me to build a great relationship with both baseball players and coaches and to be able to have that kind of like as if it just had, but it also allowed me to just enjoy the moment. And I think if you start thinking how surreal it is that I'm in the Olympics, I'm 43 years old. What did we just win 24 out of 28 games to this, literally from going from Bulgaria and Estonia to Germany, listening to house music between innings, to Italy, to throwing the last pitch, holding my hands. We just qualified the Olympics. And then being in that scenario is just, it's
a whirlwind.
It's a game changer. It's something that's there for life. And every time it comes in, I'm like, I've never, so I play with, I think we've all seen that in our day-to-day lives. I mean, we've all been around people that age of 28, they're like, oh man, my back's hurting. Like, I don't think I'm going to play. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to play basketball anymore. I'm not going to play soccer anymore. It's like, I feel old. I'm going to retire. I've never said that. Those words have never came out of my mouth. I'm like, you want me to stay home? You're going to have to tell me, yo, Shlomo, you're staying home this time. You ain't coming. And which kind of what happened in the World Classic this year. I was outside even the extended roster until the last day. And I think they just understood my value extends beyond the field, and obviously some of the press opportunities. I mean, I got more press from this tournament than the people who actually, than the people who played. It's a good story, and if you're a new part of the news cycle, you're always looking for a good story. But just play, have fun. Like, I can't even imagine, like, playing video games I consider that as a hobby. Do you know how many people out there don't have a hobby?
Yeah, I have friends who I just go home and sit. I'm like, what do you mean? You don't do anything for fun, enjoyment?
Oh no, I have family, I have work. If I didn't have baseball, I mean, I use baseball as much baseball as use me. I mean, I use baseball because if I don't have a game on a Wednesday night, I'm not going to leave the office until 10 p.m. No matter how busy the day is, it's a miracle how I find a way at 6:30 to leave work to go play baseball. I like to sleep in, I like smoke a little bit, have fun on the weekends. I would not wake up for fucking anyone or for nothing at 7 a.m. and drive 2.5 hours on a Saturday or Sunday. Baseball, you better believe it. I'll do all of that.
Yeah.
I would never imagine, being in Tokyo and then coming back and then, answering 500 emails at midnight where everyone else is just kicking it. That's what I do. So I use baseball as kind of this motivator to keep me going, to go to the gym, to go work, go work out, to be able to live a healthy life, to be and it's again to my advantage. Musicians love the fact that I play baseball. I mean, there are musicians out there that have like these, baseball group chats that just all they do is kind of exchange like, funny stories like that. And so, it's a two-sided relationship. And again, I'm lucky because it's true. I mean, they say every single time you get on the field, it may be your last. I just extended that last for 35 years.
And I know you mentioned Wednesday nights you're going to play in rec leagues and things like that. Are you, first of all, like the most popular person during these rec leagues? And second of all, are we mowing hitters down? Are you Cy Young? Like, what's going on in these leagues?
I'm pretty good, but listen, the New York leagues suck. New York fields relatively suck compared to some, let's say, California or Texas or Arizona. There is one league, it's called the Zodiac League. I mean, these are a bunch of 21, 22, 23-year-old kids. I'm one of 5 white players in the league. Everyone else is Dominican, Puerto Rican. And man, you're talking about being popular. Imagine these, you know how many people flew from this league to go to Miami to see, they live that shit. So for them, it's like mind blowing, obviously. And these are kids that got drafted when they're 15, 16, flown to the US. A lot of them were signed by teams, let go for whatever reason. I mean, you know, most people get released. I mean,
that's just the nature of it.
Discipline. Yeah. But you have people in these leagues that are just throwing 97, 98.
God.
If you put a ball down the middle, they hit a 430-foot home run. This is in a public field in Brooklyn. That's what I want. I want to be punished if I throw it down the middle.
Yeah.
I want an umpire that's good enough that, like, I don't take pride in having an umpire calling me a strike rate. I want to be rewarded when it's a good strike, when it's a good pitch, and I want to be punished when it's not, and not in a sadistic kind of way. Like I like to be punished with a home run. No, that's good competition. I also play with a over 35 league, which, believe it or not, I use it as a kind of mental exercise because it's a real mental fuck. These are guys who obviously had some good arms and good sticks. They're 38, 37, 30, 39, whatever. They'll punish you if you throw a ball down the middle. But if they're in the field, if you hit the ball even an inch to your right or to your left, it's gonna be a pass ball. So sometimes throwing six or seven batters per inning. So do I mow people down? No, because I'm not a strikeout guy, right? I'm depending on the defense. So I get the ground balls. Very few hits get hit hard. But guess what? Unless it's directly into the glove and the guy happened to have an open glove on that specific over 35 league, it's going to be a long inning. But again, I just use it. I keep reminding myself, play it cool. Don't show any weakness in your body language. And these are a bunch of
stay strong. Yeah,
guys who haven't played in a long time. But anything you do could be used as some type of tool to get better.
So this is kind of backtracking a little bit, and I think I already know the answer because you kind of said there's no fanboying. You're a competitor. You step on that mound. Doesn't matter who you're pitching to. Your goal is to get that person out. But when you look back at now all these tournaments that you've played in, are there certain hitters that you faced where you just in your head go, wow, I pitched to whoever it is?
I anticipated you're going to ask that question. Like, who are some of the best hitters you hit? I'm going to tell you something, and I'm not bullshitting. And first of all, most recent one I would say I'm proud of the double play ball I threw against Todd Frazier and Team USA in the Olympics.
That's so cool. Yeah.
Let me tell you something, and I swear to God, this is how from day one. You could in a game face me 4 times. You could hit 3 home runs off of me, and the 4th time you come up, I don't know who the fuck you are. I don't remember what you did last at bat. I don't remember. And in the most positive way. I'm a guy who, I'm that guy. Like, my style of pitching is, I like to pitch in. I pitch backwards. Most hitters, even most pitchers, especially not in the unless in the big league, try to avoid the inside. So I'm all about. I don't like to wipe off. I don't like to shake off all that stuff. I like to make sure I spend the time with the catcher to make sure that they know exactly how I like to pitch, and then I kind of groove with it. If maybe in the beginning, if it's a start, I'll kind of move around. I don't remember what they did, how they did. I really rely on the catcher to kind of jive with it.
Call a game.
Yeah. And I know it's some people and a lot of people, especially baseball is a game of stats, and a lot of pitchers that I know, like, oh man, this guy did this and that. I try. I could not remember. So I faced Netherlands. I faced Korea. I faced obviously the U.S. I've faced lots of good players, and Team Italy had a bunch of big leaguers. I really truly do not remember a single hitter I've ever faced.
Because you're
I don't
staring at
remember
you're
what they
staring
did
at
or
the
what they
catcher's
do.
mitt. That's it. Yeah. So when you're, because it really seems like you're just focused on getting in a rhythm, vibing, like you said. You're a music guy, so like when you're on the mound, are you like, is there music going on in your head? Are you just really trying to focus, or it's just you're locked
I
in?
hear nothing. I see nothing. I don't. You could be cussing my mom, doing whatever. It's. I hear. I really nothing. And not only that, like in these leagues, I play the Dominican leagues. There's not a word of English spoken. I'm not. I'm almost using it as a meditative kind of state of mind. I don't hear anything. I don't see anything. I just get into a rhythm and get outs. And yeah, that's how I've always been.
That's really cool. So, do you think? Obviously, your playing career, as far as now recreationally, is not over.
What do you say next? No,
No, no, no.
no, I'm kidding.
Baseball is like, I wish I had access to leagues to keep playing, because I'd play all the time as often as I could. And I know you feel the exact same way. But as far as like representing Israel again, do you think that is still like something you'd want to pursue? Is your body going to let you do it, or are you maybe just focused on next phase?
September 20 to 27th, we're playing in the European Championships in Prague.
That's so cool.
We finished second. I'm still extremely bitter that we didn't win 2 years ago. We had Netherlands on the ropes, and it was I won. I was the winning pitcher on record against Italy in the semifinals, and then we were up against the Netherlands in the ninth inning and lost. So I'm definitely playing this September, and I think my goal as far as extending that, and I'm not talking about retirement, but I think the full circle is Israel is hosting the European Championships Pool A in 2025. And I think that could be a cool kind of homecoming.
Yeah, that would be a really nice full circle moment.
Otherwise, I think you're probably going to be one of the, I joke around, there's such a blurry line and a thin line between, oh man, that Shlomo dude, it's so cool they're still playing, and to crossing that line is like, oh man, look at that guy, poor guy, he still thinks he wants to be on the field. Where is that line? I'm not sure. I may have crossed it in some people's heads. I still get people out. That's all I care about. I mean, and in a lot of ways, I think I've gotten better and better. My changeup has never been as good. My approach, my ability to kind of turn around, to be able to read what to do, I think is gone. I could still throw 140 pitches in a game and still wipe my ass, the following day, which is, I'm not like, oh, DeGrom, you have a little soreness over here after
throwing shade.
I'm sorry. I mean, I love DeGrom. I mean,
I know.
Guy's fucking my idol. I mean, he's an amazing pitcher, but I think the level of sensitivity has changed.
I agree. You mentioned your changeup, by the way. I think that's your best pitch in the video game too, for what it's worth. Because you're representing a team that's not the United States, you're traveling a lot when it's time to play in these competitions. Is that hard for you from just like, not a social perspective, but just like your everyday life is what you're doing right now? Is that kind of an interruption to everything that's going on?
If I told you or anyone, yo, your benign life, your gray life, the one your daily fucking routine where I get into the subway and I go and work and see the same people, you could go to, let's see, Korea, Tokyo, Prague, Germany, Miami. Are you cool with that?
I'd be fine with it. I mean,
I
don't know.
Most people would be cool with that. So the only inconvenient, and that's something that kind of started early on. Like I knew for me to be able to go travel, and that's true also when I go back home and visit my parents and my family in Israel. Out of two lives, I think it's worth for me answering 4 hours of emails or taking some phone calls at midnight Tokyo time when it's midday in New York. That's a price that I'm happily would pay, and I would say overshadows any inconvenience of not being in kind of normal routine. My team picks me up. I think my boss is probably a little bitter because when I a little tip for those who enter the workforce. Your first instinct when you start a new job, I think, is I want to impress the hell out of my boss. I want to be, the A player. So maybe this year I'm not going to tell them that I observe the holiday or that I do an annual trip, and you try to you think that's a good thing. That's the worst thing you could do. It's all about creating facts on the ground from day one.
Yep.
And it's almost impossible, I would say, to change after that. So when I started my first year with my boss, I kind of said, yo, this is 15 years ago. Like, hey, I still play for the Israeli national team. You're cool with me going once a year or twice a year to play tournaments? And he's like, yeah, sure, no problem. He's told me many times that he would have never agreed if he knew that 15 years later I'd still be doing it and disappear sometimes. When we did the classic in 17, when we kind of started advancing, when we did the Olympics, I was gone for almost 2 months.
Yeah,
that's a long time. And yeah. I'm still on the payroll. I'm still on the clock and I'm getting paid. So
yeah. So when you go back for the European Championships in September, how similar will that team be to the World Baseball Classic team? Or is it mostly going to be more local guys?
Much more Israelis, for sure. Much more Israelis. I think one of the great things that has a gift that's kept on giving, that unlike the World Classic, where you just have to be Jewish, the European Championships, you have to carry an Israeli citizenship. And the president of our league and the GM, Peter Kurtz and Jordy, did a really phenomenal job once we qualified for the Olympics, and actually took a backdoor approach and got a bunch of Jewish baseball players to get citizenship. So the Nick Rickles and even like a Danny Valencia he has a Israeli citizenship, and a lot of those cats, and those have been the foundation for the past 5 or 6 years, knowing that we qualified for Olympics in 2019. So we did not, right after the Olympics, we went to the European Championships in Italy, and it wasn't as sexy. Danny Valencia, who has many years in the big league, obviously doesn't find going to the European Championship as sexy as playing, in the Olympics or the World Baseball Classic. But we've been lucky to have a lot of folks who have taken advantage. So that generation is kind of slowly dying off. And when I say dying off, they're now not playing anymore. So we're going to need that next wave of players. But even though our goal 15, 20 years ago was we want to use these tournaments to be able to raise tons of money and awareness and blow up the amount of participants in the baseball leagues in Israel and build multiple fields, I think we fell short in some of those goals. I don't think baseball will ever become a mainstream game in Israel. It's a niche sport. There's never going to be multiple stadiums, although they're finally finishing up, 1 or 2 fields. But what it has caused, and that's something that's already unstoppable, is so many Jewish college kids and pros now, Jewish pros, because of the World Classic, because of the high profile in this. Now we have parents and children reaching out to us, and now we're finding out there's a bunch of Jewish college kids that their parents are Israeli that moved to the States 20 years ago, and they don't need even to pull any strings. They could get an Israeli citizenship. So that is now we having that list is kind of growing and more. And again, going a little bit into the Jewish baseball scene, which is definitely a scene.
I wanted to ask you about it anyway, so by all means, please go into it.
I mean, just the fixation of Jews, I think, with baseball or statistics, I think, stems from 2 ways. And as a Jewish, I guess I'm allowed to say certain stuff that maybe as a non-Jew would be considered a racial slur, I guess. I think it's, Jews have not been given the gift of outstanding above average physical attribution. So I think the second best thing is just being able to just be a so nut job on statistics and just following the game. But if you saw our team, if you stood on the line this year in the baseball classic, you're like, damn, there's some big ass Jewish kids on
The big
on
guys, yeah.
Yeah, some big guys. So that's changing. But again, we have that awareness. There's like a bunch of baseball blogs. I mean, it was called Jewish Baseball World, whatever it is, that now started following college Jewish kids, not only big leaguers, because there's a place for them, And if we could get a bunch of these kids to connect to their tradition, to connect to their heritage, and go through the process and get citizenship, there's enough players now, who have played with Team Israel, who could tell these kids or tell anyone around them, man, playing these tournaments are special. I mean, one of the most reoccurring and you saw that this year more than ever before. We have some of the best players in the world telling you, I have not had this much fun.
It looked like so much fun. Just every game was
so
electric.
I mean, baseball in general is fun again, right? I mean, look what goes on in the dugouts after a home run. I mean, the
celebrations are crazy.
Circus. Yeah. But that's great. And it's fun. And you know what? When it's such a long season and the games are so long, it's a way to get people engaged. And not so true for big leaguers. But when you're in the big leagues, you could be bitter and you could be salty, but you should shut the fuck up because you're making millions of dollars. But for those, and most of the baseball players are playing pro, they're in the minor leagues, there is so much resentment towards baseball, because when you're in the minor leagues, unless you're one of 15 players that the organization feels that they're the future, they're the next prospect, you're just a placeholder.
You're nothing. Yeah, you're depth, really.
Nothing. And
yeah,
so many great athletes out there and played who work their ass off and deserve an opportunity because of stupid politics, because of some old school coach. I mean, this new age coaching style, we have these like ex-players who just, even if they never imagined in their life, they just have this approach to players. This kind of the lower you go down in the hierarchy in the organization, that's where all these old school coaches who, for no rhyme or reason, and you see, this is me. Obviously, I've never experienced. This is just me absorbing from other people. It's like how they get treated, how they get paid, the lack of what makes perfect sense. You have a great year, you're great at what you do, you will be moving up. That doesn't exist in that world. It doesn't.
Yeah, because you have those like older coaches who maybe like 20 years ago they helped develop one really good prospect, but that prospect was good anyway. And then this person just has a job for life.
Just work on their gut feeling.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Gut is important, and we could go into that. I mean, gut has to be part of the equation when you make decisions on the baseball field, but gut by itself, I've proven again, gut is some prehistoric feeling that it's not always the smartest thing. And even if you're big leagues, like how do you excuse having a guy who moves up in the minor league, gets called up, and is just going on a fucking tear, and because if they play one more inning, they're triggered, now they'll be owed money, no matter how good you are, no matter how they need you, they'll push you down to the minor leagues, because if you play one more inning, they'll have to pay you, the league minimum. Or
I've always hated that. I've hated that so much.
That's fucking BS.
Yeah, because if, like you said, if you earn it, you should be getting the opportunity, no matter what the circumstances are. Especially, there's so many of these big league teams that just downright suck, and they have players in the minors probably capable of helping them, but because of all these factors you just talked about, they're just like, nah, you just stay at AAA. We'll get you when we're good again.
And look at these numbers that what was it? They just sold the Redskins, right? I mean, or in football, I mean, I'm sorry, not the Redskins,
the Commanders. Yeah,
the
I know who you're talking about.
Whatever. Look at the value of these teams. I mean, these are extremely rich teams. I mean, $6 billion or something ridiculous. I mean, I can't even imagine what the A's are going to be getting to move from Oakland to Vegas. I mean, it's not from lack of money.
Oh, they have the
money out there.
Yeah. They have the money. Just the owner likes to keep more of it than he likes to give away.
Yeah.
Going back a little bit, you talked about how you don't think baseball is ever going to pick up to the full extent in Israel like you had hoped or like others had hoped. What is the primary competition? What's the other sport? Is it soccer or is it something else?
First of all, for those who don't know, like one of the biggest obstacles besides physicality and just pure size is when you turn 18, which in every sport, in almost every asset of life, 18 is when you hit your prime, right? You're going into the army.
You have to serve. Yeah.
You have to serve 3 years. And unless you're as lucky as I was, which was, I was one of 50 athletes that year, the year that I got drafted, that were allowed to continue to play the sport, you're basically abruptly stopping to play sports. So there's a lot of talented athletes out there in all sports that after 3 years of going through hardcore fucking shit, they never go back, and you definitely stop your potential as athletes. So in general, that's a big problem.
That's a barrier
in sports. Yeah. Secondly, facilities. I go back to, for me, yes, access to great equipment is nice, but it's access to field. It's access to the small stuff. In the one hand, I think that looking all sweet, all super sweet with all the latest gear and, a pinky protector and a little thing and some WWE type of sunglasses, that reminds me of like the 80s and 90s. On the one hand, it's ridiculous. On the other hand, when you're a kid, that's what gets you into the sport.
Oh, yeah.
To the sport. I mean, looking good is part of, winning the game. I think you could become a great player, and you look at what's going on in Dominican and Puerto Rico and all the South American, where it's like they have nothing of that, but they still have this kind of love and passion. That's a whole different thing. So for me to be able to have a kid, I never got that competitive satisfaction from baseball as a kid because we had 5 games a year. We didn't have a baseball field. There was no umpires. I had to wash my own freaking shirt. I played with soccer cleats. I played with, there wasn't any of that. So I played handball, soccer, basketball, track. That's how I got my satisfaction, which is a good thing anyway. I mean, these days they say play every sport, do ballet, do yoga.
Yes, diversify yourself.
Using your body in an athletic, in athletic motion. So there's not the infrastructure for the kids to become a field rat. The best players are the ones who are like the ones at the field the longest, the ones that are helping make the field and watch nonstop. So that, and ultimately when you're a kid, when you're 10, 11 years old and you really are into your sport, you want to play the sport that could give you the most opportunity that's run in front of you. And I think basketball and soccer and probably tennis and even judo, because we won a bunch of Olympic medals in judo, probably is definitely more accessible. The level is higher in that youth level, and it probably gives you as a delusional kid, more of a clear path to become a professional than, let's say, a baseball. But every Shlomo Lipetz, every Ryan LaVonway, every Danny Valencia, and MLB The Game, the show, anything that will capture the imagination of that little Chaim or Avi Cohen or this, Moshe Levy in Tel Aviv is like, man, I want to be like that. That's when the seeds are planted for those kids to then really have those goals to become a college player, and maybe move to the States a little sooner, go play in the academy in Europe, and then hopefully become a big leaguer.
That's an awesome answer. The last thing I wanted to talk to you about, because we're going to get you out of here very shortly, MLB The Show, to circle back to the game, they like to say it's realistic. It isn't, but that's okay. It's still baseball. We still love baseball. But if someone were to use your card, your player, with that 4-seamer changeup, sinker, slider, how do you recommend attacking a hitter with that pitch mix? How are we going about it? What are we starting with?
So
what's the out pitch?
First of all, facing a lefty, stay away from the middle in at all costs. Just do not.
At all costs. I love that.
At all costs. I'm all about the backdoor slider coming out because it's a slider, so it looks like it's away from a lefty way longer, and then it sneaks in. Changeup that starts out and goes out of the strike zone, and fastball that has that movement. Maybe if it's high, if it's deep in the count, I'll try to freeze him with like a with a four seamer inside. But my opposing batting average goes up 300 points if I try to go inside for a lefty. Period. And if you have any control on your outfield, definitely bring in your left fielder way in, because the only time they're going to get a hit is a little
cheap shots
above the third base or shortstop, because that's I would say that's where the weakness is.
Valuable information.
For a right-handed batter, I love the front door slider all day long. Again, if you're a righty and I stand all the way to the right side of the
rubber,
it looks like I'm throwing from behind you, because if you're righty, I'm literally coming from this side. So it's about the slider that looks like it's about to hit me down, and then it just inside. And that's not a pitch that a lot of people throw. It's that front door slider for a righty. A changeup, and then fastball just all day long. Try to nibble, get them out, then try to freeze them with a fastball outside. My changeup for a righty is not as effective when I try to throw it outside. It just doesn't have that kind of dip and slide in.
You're coming more across your body, right? Yeah.
Yeah. If I do throw a slider for a righty, I'll start in and try to aim and just have them start kind of middle in and have it break in. The key is expanding the strike zone. I would be very ineffective if they move into a electronic strike zone, because I take pride in kind of like by the third inning, the umpires are calling this much off the plate on both sides of the plate, because I've established, the old school thinking is establish a strike zone. Ultimately, I hate when a catcher, tries to give me a pitch in and then I throw it out for a strike. I don't want to have that called as a strike. So I want to show them that I can hit my spot. So I'm still in the old school where if I hit my spot, even if it's consistently 3-inch in or 3-inch out, I want to get those calls. Unfortunately, baseball is going away from that. I just saw them in the minor leagues are starting to experiment with whether you could challenge a striker or a ball.
Yeah, I will. So in a previous job, I used to actually cover some independent league baseball as a reporter. And I was at the Atlantic League's first game when they used it was the automated strike zone, but it was the one where I forgot what it is. I think it sends a signal to the umpire, who then calls strike ball. No challenge system.
Basically, if they become what we always call umpires, they're fucking rabbits.
It was weird. It was different as someone who grew up playing baseball, and you're just at the mercy of this drunk umpire who's calling whatever the hell he wants behind the plate. Now you literally, like you said, have a robot making decisions. It's different.
I played 2 games banana ball in 2020 as I was getting ready to the classic. So the Olympics. I don't know if I want to go that kind of far in some of the other rules, but hopefully that gave you some tips. I don't know how that applies, as far as my approach. That's what I told you is exactly what I tell a catcher, rather if I'm starting the game or I'm coming in, this is what I want. This is what I want. Help me get there. I like the catcher to sit exactly where he wants the ball. Some folks believe like you start in the middle and you give out and then you move as you go to the windup. Help me, help you, help me, which is just show me where you want. Let me hit that shit right in the spot.
Well, I'm going to use your tips because I'm going to tell you my stats with your card right now, and it might not make you happy.
Well, with the ratings, that's not fair because you could have
the ratings are bad
strategy. So we need to change those statistics. I don't mind on velocity. I'm okay with it, but accuracy. What's the third one? Stamina. Come on, I should be throwing triple headers in the game and still be at 90.
Through 26 and a third innings, you have 4 saves, so that's good. You got 11 strikeouts. So, like we said, not a strikeout pitcher, but
it's a fastball at 82 if you're hitting my 66 changeup.
Yeah, but it's a 4.1 ERA. I'm working on that's. Got to get down. I'm trying. Because like you
All right.
said, if you miss the
Now,
spot a little
is it
bit,
your
it's gonna get
skill? Is it your skill? Can I, or maybe you have to put some more time in it.
I mean, I'm decent at the game. I don't know. It might just be me, but I do agree. I like pitching to contact, which is why I think I like using your card, because if you're out thinking your opponent and throwing the pitches they're not expecting, you're getting a lot of ground balls, a lot of really shitty pop-ups, and you hit your spots even though your control is not what it should be. But I think your card's a lot of fun. I think a lot of people think your card is a lot of fun. And I hope that everyone continues to learn more, not just about you, but about there's hundreds of World Baseball Classic players in this game that nobody's ever heard of before because of the agreement that's in place. So I really hope people continue to learn about it.
I love that. I love that because I love that the fact that they incorporated the World Classic players. I think it's great. It's great for the popularity of the game. I'm sounding like a stupid ambassador here. I think
no, be the ambassador.
Cool
go for it.
You want that guy who has no one to look up to, who's from Czech Republic, who had this crazy run, to be able to play a Czech player.
Representation matters. It does.
Some substitute teacher. I've seen that. I've seen those promos so many times.
yeah. Representation matters. And this was incredibly cool. Shlomo, thank you. I cannot begin to thank you enough so much for answering a random DM on Instagram. But you did share my TikTok on your Instagram. So I think we're even on that front. But thank you so much. I appreciate everything. If people want to follow you anywhere on social media, where can they find you?
Shlomo Music on Instagram. Bachelor said I have a Facebook. Obviously, I'm never going to tell you my MySpace handle.
No, don't do that. No.
I do have also a TikTok, although I'm not active. I am a victim of just like the endless scroll. I do enjoy it. But Shlomo Music, SHLO Music, one word. Yeah, keep it alive. I want to be a permanent fixture on MLB The Game, the show. Sorry. I've asked a bunch of people who DM me about it, like, yo, do you know anyone who could change it to Israel? It would be nice to be the first Israeli born,
that would be cool.
on the show. And you know what? I still hope someday, and this jokes have been, kind of well and alive, that someone will decide to sign me for one day.
Dude, we got to make it happen. I don't know anybody in big league organizations, but there's got to be one listener of this podcast who does. Let's make this shit happen. Let's get Shlomo, even if it's in spring training. Let's get him to pitch an inning.
I'm down.
It'd be incredible. Thank you so much, guys, for listening to this episode. Make sure you like, subscribe, leave a 5-star review, all the stuff that content creators tell you to do. And stay tuned every Tuesday for more episodes of the show, the podcast. Shlomo, thank you again. Appreciate you so much. See you next week.
Later.